So what's that stuff? All right. Welcome to Seward Soundwords. Marc Swanson, our guest tonight. Really happy to have him here. 91.7 KIBH FM Seward. Local writers reading their work live on the air. Always great to be in the booth. Marc Swanson, Marc and I have run into each other a lot over the years. On the trail seems to happen. Also at community events. Always really fun talking to you, sir. And so it's nice to kind of have this time put aside to really just let it go.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And Marc brought a lot of his writings. And so he's going to share a variety of different works. I have been at Resurrect Art for a couple of Marc's performances, a reading where he read about coaching the cross-country ski team, which was a really neat piece, humorous, and then storytelling as well. Marc is a teacher, for his career. He taught in Bethel, he taught in Nulato by the Yukon River and Titlik, moved to Seward in 92 and did a lot of teaching here in Seward. 5th and 6th grade classes, developed a writing program, a writing curriculum, which we're really going to get into that program and the topic of teaching writing. Because, we're going to spend some time there, which I'm really excited to do.
Yeah.
And Marc also taught science and math, and then for retirement, position in the summers, worked for the Park Service on the boats a lot, interpreter, storytelling, and developed a curriculum there for KMTA. So I do also want to mention we are live on the radio on 91.7 and on YouTube. So just how we've been doing it lately, we've got both options for listeners and viewers. On YouTube, the way to find us is at the @Sacktown channel. Marc Swanson, Marc.
And if that doesn't make you nervous, it makes me nervous.
All right. Yeah. We like a little bit of nerves, but this is going to be fun, man. Thanks a lot for being here.
You bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the thing is, I'll definitely share some writings, but really what I want this to be about is about teaching of writing in the classroom. I know that there's teachers out there, parents out there, homeschooling or not, students out there, and writing is so important.
Yeah.
It is, I think, the most important thing that is taught in the schools. Of the things that last you through your life and that you use, it's writing. Not everyone uses all their math skills, their science skills, their social studies skills, but you're writers, whether it's with your thumbs or not.
Concise.
So it's concise. So I really want to share with you the curriculum that I did develop, and those students I have out there, you'll remember this all too well.
Yeah.
All too well.
Thank you. I'm going to be taking notes, on that.
So to tell you how I kind of got started on my writing journey, I wasn't particularly a good student. In fact, I was a lousy student. But there were a couple things that happened that helped me develop ultimately the writing program. One happened when I was a Boy Scout and we were on a camping trip, and actually our assistant scoutmaster fell in the river and drowned.
Oh, wow.
And I was on, as a 11, 12, 13-year-old, on the search and rescue for him. And of course, that was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And the next year, I was 7th grade, maybe 8th grade, I spent all my time writing about that experience.
Sure.
I should have been doing math. I should have been doing the others. But during the class period, I just simply focused on writing that out. And what I found out, and that was my first thing, is that it was very therapeutic. I was able to work through all those issues of that event. And it's always stuck with me of how powerful that was. I didn't do well in math. I got a D.
Yeah.
But
passed.
But I passed. Hey.
Yeah, right.
I went on to the next grade.
Yeah.
But then the other thing was in high school. Actually, I found my sea legs as far as education goes in high school.
Nice.
Became a reasonably good student. But I had this one teacher, Mrs. Smith, and she was a language and writing teacher. And I don't remember how she got us writing, but she did. And it was very personal stuff, and it was very fun. And I found out that I was decent at it. But the thing I learned from Mrs. Smith I was able to use later on is on our final drafts, she would write in the margins lightly in pencil. No red pen, just pencil.
Yeah.
And good things, she'd write good things. She'd also write critical remarks.
Yeah.
But the meaning was very clear, is you can erase these when you're ready.
Yeah, yeah.
And okay, so the question to you,
Yeah.
which do you think I erased, the good marks or the critical marks?
I'm going to say the good marks.
Neither.
Nice.
Neither, because you had that choice.
Yeah.
You had that choice. And no, I can go back to those writings and see those marks that she made.
Yeah.
And so that was the other lesson. I incorporated that also when I also, on the final drafts, I would also write in pencil. But it also reminded me, and this is why writing is so difficult to teach. It's a very personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put your ideas out on paper, and as a teacher, you all of a sudden go scribbling in red, you're attacking the very soul.
Yeah,
even though the writing needs the red on it,
Right,
it needs
right.
correcting.
The soul doesn't.
The soul does
Yeah.
not need that. So when I first came out of college, that was in the 70s and early 80s, and it was the airy fairy stuff. Is get your feelings out on paper.
Okay.
Let it flow.
Yeah.
And the ones I enjoyed writing, that was fine. For those who didn't write, it wasn't that great. But the thing that I didn't do, you didn't see any progress.
Uh-huh.
They did not become better writers.
Right.
Okay. They were stagnated. They were just putting words down, feelings down, or whatever, but it didn't help them grow.
Yeah.
And so for 10 years in the villages, I mean, I did my best, but I wasn't a particularly good writer. A writing teacher. I wanted to be, but I wasn't. But then when I came to Seward, ticked off my first year, and I was struggling with it. And another teacher suggested this one curriculum called Success in Reading and Writing. And it was a curriculum, not really a curriculum, it was a textbook. And not a textbook, but rather just a book for teachers. And it basically showed how you could incorporate spelling and reading and writing and research. And even though I didn't follow that, it gave me the nucleus for my research program, which became the basis of the writing program.
Cool.
And it turned out to be wildly successful. I was amazed at how the students progressed in their writing. I remember that a high school teacher, came down for parent conferences in the fall, and he looked at these writings that we had on display, and we already had like 3 projects done.
Yeah.
And he said, how do you get kids to write like this?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Right
Great.
there.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be able to fill up some time of talking about how I did it.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. But I can share writing now.
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want.
We're gonna
Okay.
move around a little bit. We got some fun. So you were hooked. When the show starts. Now we're really got it set. We're gonna spend some time on that. That is fascinating stuff. Thank you, Marc, for sharing. And yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I don't want to make this about my writing because I really just dabble in it.
But that is kind of the purpose of Seward Soundwords in a way, to share what you want to share about writing. So the teaching, I know that's going to be a main direction, but to kind of just keep the show,
Sure.
on
track.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when Sean asked me to do this, he also said another project that he is going, I guess, people writing about their favorite hikes and sharing it with people.
Yeah.
And you'll see a little jab in there, by the way.
Okay.
But
Good. Yeah.
And you'll see in my writing, as I went through some of the writings, I'm just a storyteller.
Yeah.
I like telling stories, and I like humor, and I like you'll see.
Yeah, that's come through in your performances.
So,
yeah.
So this is entitled A Favorite Hike. You'll note the title, A Favorite Hike, not my favorite hike. I have too many of treks that I enjoy without deciding which one is the correct attributes to be my one and only favorite. Besides, why would it matter anyhow? It's a glorious hike. I enjoy it immensely. And don't go expecting me to give you a name or location. Too much of that going on with social media. That'd be the jab.
Yeah.
Anyhow, why should that matter? One man's memorable trek should not be another man's checklist. Okay, I'll give you one hint. The woman I love have kissed and embraced there. Sorry, not much of a hint there, since that pretty much describes nearly all the walks I've trampled on. All those except the ones when she's been pissed off at me. Many of those, too. That said, this one I like to climb by myself, for myself. I like getting up early in the morning, grabbing my packed stove, coffee, and bagels to toast. The climb is adequate to shake off the morning cobwebs and stir the blood in the limbs. Trail rises through the old growth forest that the tie hackers missed back in the day. Continues to rise above the tree line to green meadows that midsummer are filled with stalks of lupin, chocolate lilies, and fireweed. It smells of fresh, of green, of pushkis in the sun. If the morning is dry, the bees are often buzzing about, gathering their breakfast. I have a hidden spot on a grassy ledge that I'll set up my kitchen. The stove's primed, coffee's made, bagels toasted complete with cream cheese from Safeway and gooped with spicy jelly made from last year's high bush. And slowly, I'll savor the toast and the coffee, especially the coffee, while looking over the town I call home. It's waking up now. Town is. Traffic is picking up. Boats cut the bay water. And if the tide is out and the reds are in, the fisher folk line the stream bed banks. And as I sit there and contemplate life and all the good things around me, I am so lucky. I am so fortunate. It was one time as I leaned into the morning that a black bear came up from behind. I heard the brushes rustling first, and before I even turned around, I knew it was either A or B, bear or moose. Neither being particularly good. It was the former, not a particularly big one, but it was about 15 feet to my backside. The black bear was not offended by my presence and seemed particularly interested in my breakfast. I gave a good yell, but it didn't even flinch. Crap. The one time, the only time, I left my bear spray in the truck. Not particularly wanting to share my breakfast, I took my cup and banged it on the pan. The metallic sound rang through the forest, and that was enough for Mr. Bear. He turned tail and evaporated into the brush. Unfortunately, so did my coffee that was in the cup and pan. I silently debated whether the loss was worth it. I guess when all is said and done, it probably was a good choice.
Nice.
There you go.
Thank you.
Of course.
Fantastic. With you every step of the way. Don't know exactly where it is.
Neither
don't
would.
need to,
Don't
I'm,
need to.
I'm there, man.
Yeah.
Leaned into the morning. Loved it. Love you going through those flowers. I mean, thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that new piece.
Brand new,
Swanson,
brand
yeah.
new, right off the.
Yeah,
press.
that,
Yeah.
that mountain kitchen.
I love going up
Yeah.
there.
I think people might, hear that and take that idea with them,
Yeah.
like to
Oh, yeah,
cook
I
breakfast and make the coffee hot
I love
up
it.
there, set
I
up a
love it
little,
up
little
there.
day camp.
I try and get up there in the summer several times.
Yeah.
Get up early.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And this, by yourself
Mhm.
for you, I think that's such a hiking thing that, of course, company on the trail is great, like you kind of open with, but those solo ones where it's just,
It's good. And when you have time to think and look around and stuff, too many times I'm out there walking and I'm just thinking about other stuff. So it's nice to actually be zoned in on what's around you.
Yep. That way you can be ready for the bear, and
in theory.
yeah. Yeah.
Which obviously I wasn't.
Right. But ready enough.
Yeah.
The bear spray. Yeah. All right. Well, should we talk more teaching or do you
Sure.
have a little,
Let's talk about the program
curriculum?
level.
Yeah.
So the way that I would approach the students on the first day is I would take out one of the 6th grade reading textbooks, the basal texts. I don't even know if they use them anymore. The basals were a collection of stories where you read the stories and there'd be questions at the end to answer.
Yep.
That's the way I learned to read.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
remember
way,
those.
let's see, Dick, Jane, and Spot or whatever it was.
Right.
All along. And I'll haul that out and I'll say, this is the 6th grade reading text.
Yeah.
And you could hear this collective moan from the students because they know what it's all about.
Right.
And I said, hold on, you guys, what's wrong with this? And they moan a little bit. And I said, I'll tell you what's wrong with this is that you read a story and then you answer questions. And they got it all wrong. You already got the questions. You need to read about the questions you got.
Yeah.
Make it personal. And that's what research is all about. So what we would do for the entire year in about 2.5, 3 week cycles, we would do research projects, major research projects every 3 weeks or so. And the premise is to read for information, to write for information, and to present for information. And that was that cycle over and over again.
Read, write, present, all for information.
Yep.
Yep.
So we would have a theme of some sort. It might be like marine biology, heroes and heroines, Night of the Notables, health and medicine, just anything that I decide might be interesting.
Yeah, this is a writing class, though.
Yeah,
because you get into research. I think we started thinking, a little science involved. No, but this
right.
is
Oh,
right.
no, sometimes science was involved. Sometimes there was actually, lots of times we would incorporate the science. So it incorporated lots of stuff, lots of history. We did Seward history stuff. We did historical fiction stuff that they developed.
Cool.
But they one time, I'll get to that one later. Yeah. But the idea is that we brainstorm all these topics within that focus.
Yep.
All these topics. They'll fill a whole blackboard full of topics.
Yep.
And then they get to choose. And there they want to learn whatever they're choosing.
Yep.
Now, the catch is that only one person could have a topic, so they had to fill up a board of topics. And the reason why is that they couldn't use the internet.
Yep.
First of all, the internet was happening back at that stage, but it's not the right. The idea is not to get this collection of facts. It's not to do this overwhelming amount of research. The point is to read out of books.
Yes.
And taking notes in a very prescribed way.
Right.
Very prescribed, so that they aren't they're gaining knowledge instead of just writing down what the information is from the book.
Right.
Special way of writing the note cards.
Uh-huh.
And so because of the lack of available books, on a topic, only one kid could have a topic at a time. And besides, you want to learn from each other.
Right. Yep.
And so then we would send them off. I would send them off to the school library and then down to the public library. Patty Linville and Pam Herman. They were great. I would warn them ahead of time.
Coming down.
They would. The kids would flood the library looking for resources.
Yeah. Isn't that a nice image?
It was.
Yeah.
And so they'd get a wide range of resources, and they'd come back, and they'd only have about 3 to 5 days to research. That was it.
Already clock's ticking. Time to go.
Yep.
You got the book in your hand.
Yep.
Open it.
And it was only for about 20 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
So there was really no leg time.
It's like on at work. It's like I feel like you get the blue book, get going.
Right. So that's what it would entail, and the kids would hit on it. The note cards were unique.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I remember from my research when I was a kid, I would find something in my resource and I'd write it down.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was exactly as it was from the book.
Right.
And then when I wrote the report, there it was.
Yeah.
And so you were just writing the information. That's not research. That's not learning.
Right.
So the whole point was to, when you found something that helped you understand the focus of your topic, whatever that was, then you would ask a question about what that information would answer.
Nice.
And you write that in red at the top of the note card. And then you'd shut your resource, or you put your hand over the top, you'd answer your own question.
Nice.
And then you'd go beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the topic might be, let's say, Abraham Lincoln, and the question happens to be, when was Abraham Lincoln born?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where that is, when that was.
Yeah,
I think it was Springfield or something, but they could write that down. But then they would expand upon it and tell, where, how, what was his family like? Stuff that would involve that.
Yeah.
The stuff that they've already written. They try to expand on that note card beyond the nucleus of that question.
Yeah.
And they would gather up their note cards eventually after 3, 4, 5, 6 days of research.
Mm-hmm.
Then I experimented with outlines. Those did not work at all. That slowed down the process.
The card having
actually trying to make an outline using the note cards.
Oh, I see.
The outline just didn't work.
Uh-huh.
So just stack them up.
Yeah.
See what the commonalities are. Don't look at the note cards and just simply write write your story.
Study them a little bit, spend time with them. Now it's time to write. Set them aside, just like where you cover the book.
Exactly.
No more looking
Because
at those.
no more looking at those.
Here.
It's and
Let's make it.
And the writing was very authentic.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, I would teach some sort of language skill that would have to do with the writing that I was expecting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, it might simply be just spelling, paragraphs, language mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some skill.
Yep.
Okay. And then they would go ahead and incorporate that in that. And that would be part of the rubric that they would have to get graded on.
Right.
You see, too many times, and this would just irritate the hell out of me,
Yeah.
is that when my kids were in like high school even,
yeah,
they would write this big long research report or a report. They'd get a letter grade at the top of the paper.
You're right. No explanation.
And what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right.
And so I would actually build these rubrics. I don't know.
Let's hold it up.
This one is actually a longer one from later on. They would start off with just a few things. This happens to be reading research, how much information, and it has A to F, and it describes what each one of those looks like.
Nice.
Okay, and those are spelling here, cover and title page. They had to have a good title, good cover.
Yeah.
And on this particular one, they had to do a prologue that would get graded.
Yep.
Introduction, story development,
comprehensive,
flow and maturity of writing.
Nice.
Incorporation of fact and fiction. This is for writing a historical fiction.
Yep.
And this particular one, they were writing a historical fiction on 10 minutes of time. They could only write about 10 minutes of history.
Oh, wow.
Only 10. Now, a moment in time.
Yeah.
But in order to get that, they had to do all this research to make that 10 minutes come alive. And I tell you what, they were incredible. I did maybe 3 years where we did historical fictions like that, 10-minute slices of time. Some were, first we did national/world events.
Mm-hmm.
And then we brought it to Seward. During the Seward's 100th year anniversary.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
They would go ahead and write about that event and include all. They were marvelous. The
10
stories
minutes
were
out of 100 years.
Yeah,
and just microscope.
I remember one student wrote about a flood that happened in Seward, and it was about this person that was on this tree hanging on for dear life, and it described that. But it reflected into the day, the rains that came, the flooding and stuff. It was just marvelous.
You build up to it, and man, what a good choice. This kind of scrutinizing, getting right into the essence of what's going to, really get across what you want to say.
Exactly.
Those words, those sentences are going to count. They put so much into each one.
Mm-hmm. And I would hold those writings, every one of them, up against high school, even college, many college writings.
Yeah, 5th and 6th graders.
Oh, they were great. They're marvelous.
I've seen some amazing things in my work with artists in schools.
Yeah. Do you want me to read another thing, or do you have questions about that so far?
I mean, you're listening to Seward Soundwords here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward and on YouTube. I don't know where he's got the camera, so it doesn't matter. At Sacktown, Marc Swanson is here talking about teaching writing and this system and curriculum that he developed with a lot of hard work and really, some big ideas. It just seems like getting kids excited to write, right? Like, and it seems like with this research and running to the library and winning a topic in a way off the board that they all help put this together and grabbing one. This is mine. Let's go. I'm excited because that's I think what I get to is like to teach writing. You need writing. You need them to produce. And once you get that, now you can start. You
can start working with it.
Right.
Yeah.
You got the block. That's all you need. Doesn't even have to be a lot. We're talking about like you get a good sentence or two. You're getting tone. You're getting a little touch of narration. Your student has chosen this moment, this 10 minutes you get in that one sentence. That can be enough. And then if they're, receptive to feedback, which in my work, working with 4th and 5th graders through the Artists in Schools program over these last 3 years, they are receptive. And that energy, when they have ownership, like you're talking, they chose the topic, they help put those all on the board. This is what I want to write about. You mentioned the word fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you
I'm writing down some notes.
go ahead?
We'll
Yeah.
talk about later.
Yeah.
Okay, so what to read?
Yeah.
I just brought a few things in here.
Yeah, and I really like your point, Mark, about like writing. I say this really hits home. Like, no matter what you do, your career, your life, you're gonna write. You're gonna read, and it's gonna enhance your experience with this. Writing emails for work, writing letters. Hopefully, will continue to go on. Writing captions on Instagram, communicating is so important. That's gonna no matter what happens. All this is happening. Technology things, communicating remains so important. And writing is communicating, and it's like knowing kind of what not to say. I'm on this big kick now. Like we don't like you might write some. Hey, these sentences they're perfectly grammar. They make sense, but is this what you're trying to make this point? You're confusing the reader. Getting rid of that and getting down to the essence.
Actually, writing is even more important now, especially with all the texting and stuff. How many people have gotten a text that you look at and say, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, right.
And or you just say something and you send and you say, oh, that sounded really bad.
Right, I feel that one. Was
a bad. I actually had one student come up. One former student came up to me and said, "Don't you hate the vocabulary that's going on with texting?" She was just because she had gotten so ingrained into this stuff. She just liked the proper writing, and she
Yeah, you think there's almost like more writing going on moment to moment right now.
There is.
And socially, like you think of how you interact, like that's important to all of us, like these career things we're talking about too, but like how you interact with your peers. Like if you practice writing more and are taught and put effort into it, you could argue your social life will be more.
Well, hopefully you don't do stupid mistakes.
But there won't be mistakes because everything you're saying, you'll be knowing what you're trying to communicate. You want to make your friend laugh. They're not having a great day. Well, here's a way to write that.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point.
You got us there.
There you go.
That's what we do.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I don't do this anymore. I got to get back into it. Every year I would write a Christmas letter like a lot of people do.
They do. Yeah.
But not mine. I didn't like saying, oh, what are we all doing and stuff. I try to focus on one thing that happened and actually be a gift of writing too. Yeah. And so one year in 2001, this was the Christmas letter, and it turned out to be a poem. We often do poems. My dad actually got us going on this at Christmas time. We would write cake gifts with poems on it. And poke fun at each other.
You did that at Resurrect.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So this is a Christmas letter that I sent in 2001. And for those of you who weren't around back in 2001, we had some airplanes that ended up in World Trade Centers, and we started and we were at war. And so this talks about that. It was the night before Christmas in the year 2001. Dinner was over. Dishes are done. Lesson plans were all finished, and Sadie had been fed. We were anxious for some quiet once we put the kids in their beds. Letty and I had just settled down in front of the tube when the power went off. A transformer must have blew. Don't worry, hon, Letty said, and her eyes gave a wink. The candles were lit. She was back in a blink. She emerged in her nightie, rather skimpy and quite amorous, when a loud noise outside stirred me to look what the matter was. Over the pounding of raindrops, turning snow and ice to that was slick, was a ringing of bells. It must be St. Nick. A clattering arose as the sleigh skid on the ice. It was St. Nicholas. Gee, I had to look twice. He walked in without knocking and called us by name. Hello, Letty. Hey there, Mark. Where's the rest of the gang? I've been traveling most of the night trying to dodge all those moose. He was unlacing his boots when behind Sadie gave him a goose. Santa smiled a bit shyly and patted Sadie on the schnoz when Tara and Jerry ran in and exclaimed, "It's our friend, Santa Claus." "See," Jerry proclaimed proudly, "I told you he was real." Tara looked a bit carefully and said, it's no big deal. It's probably just Grandpa playing one of his tricks. Jerry tugged Santa's whiskers and said, "No, look, these stick." I motioned to a chair and said, "Please rest. Won't you stay?" Letty brought out some cookies and an Aussie Cabernet. In the corner, the kids fidgeted. and glanced all around. Santa noticed, looked tired, and looked to the ground. There's no mistake, kids. I brought no bag of toys for you this year. No train sets, no dolls, no newfangled gear. I didn't bring Nintendos or bicycles or anything like that. No books, no CDs, not a ball, nor a bat. Jerry's forehead wrinkled and he sniffed, and a tear began to form. Santa's arm scooped him up and gave him a smile that was warm. No, Jerry, don't worry. You've been a very good boy. But this year we need more than bicycles or toys. A special gift is needed for all the kids of the world. It is a banner of peace, understanding, and harmony to be lifted and unfurled. But Santa, Tara whispered, don't you know we're at war? Yes, I do, Santa said as he walked towards the door. You see, Tara, when I came here tonight, you didn't think I was real. But Jerry, he knew different. He had the right feel. Anything, even peace, Tara, is possible on this bright Christmas Eve. All you need is hope and understanding, and for all to believe. 'Twas the night before Christmas in the year 2001. The year is nearly over, yet the new millennium has begun. If there's anything to be learned from this strange year that's to end, it's better to respect one another, to make some new friends. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. Questions?
I mean, that feels like right now, like very relevant to, making new friends.
Boy,
just
we
need
could use a little bit of that.
Just, yeah,
mellow out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it. I mean, what a great premise. Always nice, you bring in Saint Nick like that and play on that with the kids. And
that was a fun poem.
Yeah,
was
definitely.
A fun poem, right?
I'm sure that was received well.
I suppose so.
Yeah. Well, it goes
out to all the family and friends and stuff.
No one
like
says,
that.
"Hey, Mark."
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Right.
I actually had a friend in Belgium. I started these kind of letters way back when I first came to Alaska, telling about the adventures and about the story.
Right.
And he wrote me one year and said, I kept every single one of them.
Yeah.
And my son, who was in school, he shared them with his classmates.
Yeah.
So yeah, people have said that.
Yeah. Those are keepers.
Thank you.
Bring that one back.
Mm-hmm. I wrote a note and I forget what I wrote about now.
Yeah, that happens to me too. We're covering a lot of good. We got more to cover.
The thing about the assessment.
Yeah.
Okay. Is these assessments, like I showed you.
Yeah. Can I hold that up?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have this. Where is our camera?
I think it must be over there. There it is.
This is an organic show. But, so here's Mark's rubric. So students know thoroughly what they're being graded on, and can look, I don't have an introduction. Let me see what he's kind of looking for there. Flow and maturity of writing. What does that mean? Well, Look at all these points. I mean, this is thick. This is great. And so they just have this with them all year.
That is it changes every time. Every it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
It starts off at the beginning of the year with only 4 or 5 things.
You build it.
And then gets built based on what I'm teaching that.
Gotcha. Yeah, specific for that.
But then the thing is, the most amazing thing began to happen that I kind of hoped for, but couldn't dream. My role as a teacher changed.
Right.
And I became a facilitator because with the kids, after they finished their first draft, the first draft had to be handwritten and it had to be double spaced. Mm-hmm. And then they had to share it with 3 different people. Mm-hmm. And because we've taught through what I'm expecting, and because they have this rubric, they know what to do.
Yeah.
And so everyone, the 3 people, they'd have to write, whoever was correct in the paper would have to write their name at the top.
Yeah.
And then they would go through. And I listened to some of the discussions that they had as they went through with their red pens this time. It's a rough draft.
Yeah.
Correcting the writing, whether it's spelling, whether this section is awkward. Yeah, I don't know how to fix it, but it's just not good. This line is awesome. I really like that. I heard all these discussions. And I realized that I had transcended something and that now the kids were the teachers. And that was cool.
Yeah. Because that's all peer editing. At first I thought maybe they could have any 3 people like their parents, but no, this is all in the classroom.
Peer editing.
Yeah,
only peer editing.
Yeah.
In fact, I asked parents just to stay out of it unless the kids got stuck.
Yeah. Sure.
And for the most part, that worked pretty well.
Yeah, because you teach writing as a student, that's writing. You're going to bring that back to your writing. It's automatic. You're just more in the discussion, feeling like a writer,
Now, when they got the papers back from me, then they would type out their final drafts.
Okay.
And they would make a nice cover and a title page, and they'd put a nice design on it, and it had to be the cover got graded too.
Yeah. And that's really neat because that's going to go another kind of way with the brain, with the design. Some of these kids are going to be more naturally gifted, like, ooh, my cover, that's what I'm thinking of first, my poster for my book.
Right.
So
and I actually taught them how to make, how to center letters. I mean, I would not let them do it on the computer.
Yeah.
They had to do it by hand.
Nice.
And so how to center the letters, back when
like
those people with a ruler, but also like the old days with manual typewriters, you'd have to count the letters. Oh, that's an 8-letter word. So therefore, 4 go on one side of the mid, 4 to go on the other side.
I mean, this process stuff is so valuable,
So the covers were really nice. Cool. But then they wouldn't get their grade yet. They just get their finished final draft. Oh, by the way, I got go back. The kids worked hard.
Yeah.
And they had, at the very beginning, there was a very firm timeline. I told them when the rough drafts were going to be done.
Yep.
I told them when the final drafts were going to be done. I told them when the presentations were going to be done.
That's all laid out.
It's
when
all
you get the
laid
assignment.
out.
Here it is. Here's your next 3 weeks.
They have to get it done on those.
Yep.
So they got to have the same expectations from me.
Right.
So,
getting the work back to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know.
So you have 25, 26, 28 papers.
Yeah.
And my goal was to get it back, if not the next day, which was rare, within only 2 nights of work.
All
days.
25,
all of them.
2 days.
I went back to the college days of all-nighters.
Yeah.
And it was more involved than that, to be honest, because I'm real anal.
Yeah.
And I would, along with their reports, they also had all their resources in a tub. It was a dishwashing tub. They had their resources.
Cool.
And if I felt that they were copying from the book, I became an expert of looking actually in their resource.
Yeah.
And looking at their note cards, because their note cards had to be there.
Yeah.
And find out if it had been copied from the book.
Yeah.
And if it got copied from the book.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was more time that you're putting into, there's no.
It took easily 15 minutes to half an hour per paper.
Sure.
You can figure out
Yeah.
Letty brought me many dinners while I was correcting papers.
All-nighters.
But it was worth it. But then after I got done, I would not give them their grades. I would go ahead and mark the rubric and stuff, but they wouldn't get those. They would get a blank one.
Yeah.
They could see my marks.
Yeah.
And they could see where they had done well and things that they, needed correction. Lots of spelling mistakes and stuff. I noted that.
Yeah.
Said, you got the rubric, you got the description, grade it.
Right.
And then I said, okay. Then when I handed out their paper, their rubric, I said, because I told them, hey, listen, there are times I'm doing 25 papers over 2 nights.
Yeah.
I might mess one up.
Right.
And this is you can, if your grade is different than mine, then you can challenge it. But you have to use a rubric.
Yeah.
You have to tell me why you deserve that grade according to the rubric, not I don't like it.
Yeah.
And it was marvelous. More often than not, they graded themselves harder than I did.
Nice.
But every once in a while, I found one that I just totally blew it on. And it was so nice to have the kid come up and say, Mr. Swanson, I think you blew this grade. And I'd look at it, look at the rubric, and they tell their why. And I say, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that felt good because as teachers, there's so much power on the kid's psyche. And give them a chance to have ownership in their own work. Yeah. In their own grade.
And like with writing, it's like you hand in the final draft, but writing, it's never done. Like you could still fix this. Like, this is your grade. Like they get it back. And I'm sure some of them had a lot of skill as far as like arguing and being like, know, which is a great skill.
Oh, great.
Look, I have it here. The rubric says this. Yeah. And in the meantime, they're becoming such experts on your document of writing, this rubric that has so much to it that I'm sure your students like still can quote these things. Or
They
know
might be able
the
to.
categories, you know, as far as like what a good piece of writing
Yeah.
should have these things that Mr. Swanson,
Mhm.
you know, marked us on and we
Yeah.
marked ourselves on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one time I had this one student, and she was an incredible writer. I mean,
Yeah.
I never had a straight A student in my class because I never believed in straight A's.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
won't go there.
Yeah.
But if
I
anyone
had teachers
deserved,
like you. They were my best
I
ones,
know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, she was a great writer, great student, very smart. But on one report she got, really, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
A beautiful report, but she did not correct her spelling.
Yeah.
And it was A's all the way through, except for spelling. And I went through it. I mean, based on the rubric, based on the size of the writing, she only deserved 1 grade, and that was an F. And her mom was actually in the classroom. She was helping me, and so she had words with me later.
Yeah.
And this girl, I was watching her as she went through her rubric, and she saw that F. This girl that never, ever saw an F.
Right.
And her eyes got so big.
Right.
And she's just staring at this like,
not my
and she
name.
knew exactly why.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the corrections were there. Mom came up afterwards and she said, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
She appreciated that. And I tell you what, never was there a single spelling mistake
Right.
on any of her
Solve
papers
that.
after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah, I had, you know, there was one class. I mean, like I said, this worked spectacularly. This program. There was one class. It was such a weird polarized class as far as ability. I've never had a class like that where their ability was so polarized. Some
All
really
over
good
the
writers. In
board.
fact, that girl was part of that class.
Yeah.
And then some that were very low.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working. The
Mhm.
program wasn't working at all. And they were missing timelines. I never had students missing timelines like they did.
Right.
So I said, you know, this isn't for everyone. Obviously, this class, it's
Yeah.
not
Here's
for.
an example.
Which is kind of bummed because it meant going back to the base or something like that.
Yeah.
So we had a long discussion. I said, hey guys, this isn't working out. We're going to go to try something else.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised at the response because this was not a great class, right?
Right.
Okay. And they said, no, we want to do it. And I said, you aren't showing it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they still, even though it really wasn't resounding, they saw the value in it.
Yeah.
They got better. It was still a long year.
Yeah.
One kid on a different class.
You stayed with it.
I stayed with.
They-
Yeah, I
they
stayed
voiced
with.
their
I stayed.
opinion and
They
said,
voiced.
"No,
I
we
stayed with
wanna-"
it.
Yeah.
And I tried to pick subjects that were really off the wall. I
Yeah.
did something that was the only time I did it. I said, okay, this theme is going to be things that are gross.
Yeah.
Things are gross.
Right.
They researched vomit.
Yeah. Yeah.
They researched all. I mean, they.
Right.
It was. We did. Yeah.
Yeah.
One kid in a different class. He was special ed, and in my class, I asked the SPED and gifted teachers to stay in my classroom because I wanted everyone to have this experience. And I felt that it served both ends really well.
Those teachers to kind of learn your curriculum.
No, to keep the kids in
I
my
see.
class,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
SPED
right.
and the gifted that normally go on to other classrooms.
Right.
I said, I want them in my classroom.
Yeah. I'm with you there.
One kid just was having trouble.
Yeah.
He really wasn't progressing like he should. So I told this kid, hey, it's best that you work with Mr. Olive
Yeah.
and just do something else, work with him.
Yeah. Progress there.
And he
yeah.
said, okay, sure. A couple of weeks later, he said, hey, I'm almost done with that research report. What's the next topic? He was doing it on his own.
Stayed with it.
He just was doing it on it. It was lousy, but he saw the value in it.
Yeah.
He just,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
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 They bought in.
They bought in. It
Yeah.
was all buy-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about if I do another reading?
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah. This
I'll do
is-
the one that I really wanted to read.
Right.
This was a little longer.
All right. This is Seward Soundwords here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward. We're live. If it snowed today, we are live. And we're also on YouTube here on the @Sacktown channel. Marc Swanson is here sharing a lot of gifts about teaching. I think we go teaching, writing, going to be part of the show in the future, just teaching in general. I really like where we're going here, what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
It's really helpful for me as a kind of learning educator. I'm always trying to learn more, pretty new at it, but see the value. I hear you say worth it, when you put in the time, and that's why I stay at it, because this is worth it. This is important. And it's hard to teach. So the more we share as teachers, I hope teachers are listening or find this episode and be like, oh, that could be something.
And they certainly could come to me and talk. I'd love to talk to people. I would love to see this done more.
Yeah,
it is truly remarkable. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
because you really have to make it your own.
Yeah, involving the students, a lot of that.
Yeah, and trusting them.
Yeah,
really. Cool.
Big stuff. All right. So what do we got here? Are you just
I'll read the intro on it, then I'll tell a little bit about it.
There we go.
Okay. In 2004, our family took a 9-month trip around the United States. And during this trip, we went on many hikes. Unfortunately, the kids weren't always into hikes. So in order to encourage, maybe coerce the kids and to keep on going on hikes, I would make up stories. Lots of stories. Daddy, tell us a story. The longer the story, the longer they would hike. Of all the stories were made up as I was telling them. I would just make them up. One might imagine, some were pretty lame. However, there were a few good ones, and the best everyone agreed on was this one.
Nice.
And it was Jerry and Noah end up in a bottle.
All right.
And this is a story that I made up on the whim, and it's actually a short book that someday maybe I'll actually do something. This is just the first chapter.
All
so
right.
I hope we have the time.
We've got all the time, yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask whereabouts this was? You don't need to give a specific trail, but like when you kind of drafted this one?
Oh, yeah. This was on this year-round trip. I don't remember the trail. We were probably on the East Coast in New Hampshire or Vermont.
Okay. Gotcha.
We took 9 months and we homeschooled the kids. By the way, homeschooling is not easy.
Right.
Yeah. And
even if you do a 9-month trip,
even if you're teachers, you got to make up a lot of stories. You got to make up lots of stories. So I don't remember the exact trail that we were on, but it was a long trail, and we got further down the trail.
All right,
it was good.
Nice.
So this is Jerry and Noah end up in a bottle, a folk tale filled with adventure, danger, and lesson learned. And this is about son Jerry and his best friend Noah. And Tara slips in there at the end as well.
Nice.
Chapter 1. One day Noah was over at Jerry's house, but this is a book for kids.
Okay. Gotcha. With art, there would be like in the book when it's made.
I hope so. Yeah. I've been talking to someone who might think about doing something. I hope so. Okay.
I'm excited.
Maybe you can. One day Noah came over to Jerry's house, but alas, they didn't know what to do. Jerry would look at Noah, and Noah would look at Jerry. Noah said, "What do you want to do?" Jerry said, "I don't know. What do you want to do?" They were bored. Noah said, "Do you want to play hockey? Table hockey?" Jerry shook his head and said, "Nah." "Do you want to play on the computer?" Noah said, "No." "Hey, why don't we play pirates?" Jerry nodded vigorously, and both of the boys went to Jerry's room to get some pirate garb. They found a fake leather vest and bandanas for their heads. They also found eye patches, just like a real pirate would have. Jerry even found a fake hook that would make him look like a shark had eaten his hand. They even found a little treasure chest that they filled with fake jewels and shiny gold. They looked like pirates, and they even sounded like pirates. "Arg!" said Noah. "Arg!" said Jerry. "Mate, I think we should bury our treasure chest." Noah nodded his head, let go a burp that sounded just like a real pirate would have made. Now, Jerry lived deep in the woods in Alaska, so they decided to grab some shovels and go and to hike through the woods until they found a good place to bury their treasure. It was a beautiful day. The sky was blue. The birds were singing. It was a perfect day for a couple motley pirates to bury their treasure. They hiked through the forest, dodging the wicked devil's clubs with their stalks full of bristly thorns. Finally, they came upon a huge spruce tree that Jerry had never seen before. It was by far the biggest tree in the forest, with its roots wrapped around a huge boulder. "Wow, this tree is huge," said Pirate Jerry. "Funny, I've never noticed this tree before." Noah said, "Whoa, this is awesome. This would be a great place to bury a treasure." So they grabbed their shovels and started digging in the soft forest soil. They dug and they dug and they dug. Just about the time they were going to stop digging, Noah's shovel hit something hard. Now he knew it wasn't a rock because it didn't sound like a rock and sounded more like metal or glass. So Noah carefully dug until it was revealed a beautiful, large, sky blue bottle. But it was not any kind of pop bottle. This was fancy, with ornate carvings all along the sides. And it was stoppered with the most amazing crystal stopper either boy had ever seen. Noah held it up into the light. "Whoa," said Noah, "this is way awesome." Now, when you're digging around, when you find a bottle with a big fancy stopper, what is it that you would do? Why, of course, you'd open it. And that's exactly what the boys did. They tugged and pulled and twisted till finally that crystal stopper popped out. Pop! Suddenly there was a big whoosh and a squish, and a big white cloud flew out from the bottle. Noah was so startled that he dropped the bottle on the ground. "Whoa, that's too weird," said Jerry. "Uh-huh," said Noah. "Let's get out of here." The boys started to turn, but as they did, they saw the most strangest sight. Sitting on the stump right behind them was a strange-looking dude with a turban on its head. "A genie," whispered Jerry. "Yes, I'm free." The genie was smiling, but he didn't look very friendly. "You have freed me from the bottle. For 1,000 years I've been locked in that bottle, but you, sirs, you have freed me." The genie bowed, still smiling that less than friendly-looking grin. Noah looked at Jerry, and Jerry looked at Noah. "Yeah, and we get 3 wishes, don't we?" The genie just laughed. "Ha! That's in the fairy tales. In real life, you get only 1. The genie grinned. "You better make it good." Noah looked at Jerry, and Jerry looked at Noah. They both said at the same time, "We want all the riches and gold in the world." The genie roared with laughter. "Ha! That's what I wished for too so many years ago, you greedy little children. This bottle was made for greedy little children like you, and that's why you get to take my place until someone else finds this bottle in 1,000 years and wishes only for riches. Maybe then you'll learn your lesson, not want too much." Well, that was enough for Noah. He turned tail and was out of there lickety-split. But as he ran, the genie raised one bony finger toward the sky and said, "Zam!" And now Zam must have been one of those magical genie kind of words, because there was a great crack of thunder and a great whoosh of steam. This made Noah run even faster. But then he heard Jerry yelling, "No! Help! No!" Noah turned to look at Jerry, but Jerry was nowhere to be found. You could hear Jerry, but his voice seemed muffled, softened, quiet, like it was coming from the bottle. Jerry was in the bottle. Noah looked at the genie, and the genie just smiled and motioned his bony finger for Noah to come back. Noah walked back. He was sure Genie could hear his shaking knees. Whoosh! Suddenly, Jerry was standing next to Noah. Well, that was it for Jerry. Now he started running down the trail, and he heard the great crack and whoosh, and it was his turn to hear Noah's voice pleading from inside the bottle. "Help me, Jerry, help me." Now Jerry walked back to the bottle, and with a great whoosh of steam, Noah again was standing next to him. Both boys were so scared, and the genie just grinned crookedly. "No, boys, there's no escape. You cannot ever leave this bottle. But I do love to play games." Do you boys love to play games? Jerry and Noah were trying not to cry, but it was tough. Little tears ran down their cheeks. Even still, they both nodded. Maybe there was a way out of this mess. "Boys, I'll make you a deal. If you bring me the key from the Great Bear of Lost Lake, then I will allow you your freedom. But you have only 1 night and 1 day. Yes, only 1 night and 1 day to bring me this key. And if you don't, then you boys will be spend the next 1,000 years cooped up in this bottle with all your riches of the world, just like you asked for. With that, the genie was gone. Noah looked at Jerry. Jerry looked at Noah, and both wanted to cry, but they knew they had work to do.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
Incredible.
It actually, and that was all off the cuff.
Most of that you said on the hike.
All of it.
The dialogue.
Everything. I got Jerry's help to recreate it so we could write it down. It was so good.
You were locked in.
I was locked in. I wanted that hike to last, so I milked it for it was.
Yeah.
And that it's a pretty lengthy story actually.
How many chapters we got here, Mark?
Four or five chapters. They had to go there. They need help from a variety of things. But each time they find that the hint goes a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
This thing is locked in.
And like all the other stories that I would tell on the trail, it was made up with structure around things that we know. Like these boys, they're going up to Lost Lake. They end up at the Y, not knowing which way to go.
Yeah.
Someone helps them. They end up at the cabin.
Yeah.
Right.
Lost Lake cabin.
Lost Lake.
Here you are, New Hampshire, Vermont, but you're telling a Seward setting, which is kind of neat, when you're in that.
So all this stuff, so that helped. In all the stories I did, there were some nucleuses of reality.
You had those to go to and build on. But
it was fun.
All those buttons getting pressed and working. I mean,
I
don't know, listeners, viewers, we're never gonna have like phone calls coming in, but I think like me, everyone is seeing that book, like the opening piece on the trail you read of the, every step of the way, and just like, I mean that.
Hopefully, I think it could be published. I don't know. I played with it a little bit, but I don't know what to do.
Right.
So maybe I'll talk to you. I've been actually meaning to talk to you about this. Yeah. So there you go.
I'll talk to other people, and we could point them to this show. I mean, it worked great on the radio. Like you read that so well when they're stuck in the bottle. I mean, I love so much about it. The dialogue, like that's the way kids talk.
Yeah.
Sometimes like I'll write dialogue that's like, hey, that's a neat word you put in there. It's not accurate. Like it's not how that person talks. You're not doing a character. Now this Jerry's your son, so you kind of know when you're fictionalizing. Right. But I mean, this is too awesome. It's just like and just an old tale. The genie, like what a classic.
And it has a lot of twists, a lot of interesting twists.
I mean, already you flipped that genie. They can be kind of, there is that play. I just watched a Twilight Zone episode in season 2 with the genie. Yeah. That like kind of, the typical, shouldn't have wished like that. But here he had like that menacing look right away. The crooked, you knew that it was going to be.
Yeah. It's a fun story. I'll have to share it with you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I mean that's almost, more of the William Steig. I love his children's books, and he has many New Yorker artist, drawer, but great writer, and I'm collecting them all. And so he has they're not typical children's books, but like big picture, and it's usually like probably a minute of writing, or more lines than a usual like children's book with one line. But then he has these 3 almost like novellas, with like still pictures, but sometimes there'll be just like whole page of prose, which this is where I'm kind of seeing that more like that, where you maybe don't need a ton of art, because it is so visual to write. I don't even know that you'd need it, like that cover, like that your students did so good at. But you could have something.
I envision something that Roy doesn't show the whole thing, but it shows it like from the back or something. I don't know.
That's cool.
Because I like the language. I like the kids or the readers, whoever it is, to see it through their mind's eye.
Like we just did, as you read it, with the help of your voice. It's hard audiobook, but I don't know that you need visuals. Like that's so visual. Yeah. Thanks, man. You picked some good stuff.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Oh man. So that was Jerry and Noah
end up in a bottle.
End up in a bottle.
Yes, right. And it doesn't have a happy ending. Maybe.
Right. Also good. Hey, that's life. And this author, and artist William Steig, like his stuff, like whoa,
can they really do that?
Yeah, but that's where you get stuff from. I think it's cool for kids to read that, and what a cool like about the process there. Just how that inspiration came because there was a need.
There was a need
to get some storytelling, and
there's no justice in the world. When our kids were young, bless their hearts, they
Right.
just were not into hiking. I mean, we had to coerce them and tell stories, and now we can't keep up with them.
Right.
Both of them are incredible athletes,
Yeah.
both Tara and Jerry.
Yeah.
And they'll slow down for us a little bit,
Right.
but
Well,
no justice.
Kind of like your students, with they early on, like it might not look like they liked it, but they wanted to stick with it. All that hiking, you told them stories through to keep them going.
Yeah,
that worked, and now they,
It is interesting. At the end of the trip, I said, I can't do it anymore.
Right.
And it's funny because they started telling a story in rhyme back and forth.
Nice.
And it was amazing. And they did this a few times, but I remember one time Tara would say a line, Jerry would do a rhyming line, and they built this story on rhymes. And I went, all right. Maybe
on this trip on the trail.
I think it was on the year trip or shortly after.
Yeah.
It might have been old. It might have been older because Jerry was pretty young at that time. It might have been back up here.
But still facilitated by these many
Yeah.
stories that you told. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have this in our family, a Viking joke.
Oh,
on
yeah.
the trail.
What's it?
Tell a Viking joke. And
Tell
I you had that written down. I in teaching, I kind of take this, with examples. I just like, don't do it, because but it's like sometimes I feel like, I don't want it. Like, but then sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm feeling like the motivation. All right, let's go for it. And I'm always using things around on the trail, or something that came up recently. Like she'll kind of get that.
Yeah.
I have a cast of characters to go to. We build on it a little bit. There's Sheila, the rock climber. And often the Viking helmet, like the helmet is used for something in every story.
Yeah.
Usually it ends there,
Right.
and the end goes, ha ha, that's a Viking joke. And they're not necessarily funny, they're just stories. But,
Right. Right.
It's fun,
fun.
and it does work to hike a little more.
It does.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Anything to hike with your kids.
Yeah. M&Ms, and storytelling.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Whatever
And
works.
Seward, or
And
these
Seward,
Vermont, New Hampshire trails.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Seward Soundwords here on 91.7 KIBH FM Seward. Marc Swanson just read the first chapter of a children's book that he's got ready to go, and look forward to, hearing the other 3 chapters. And, spending time with you here, Marc, as I've had these samples of your writing and those times we hang out on the trail, like, talk to that guy more, want to learn from him, want to just exchange ideas. And like, with this writing movement, I think it really is here in Seward. What you just shared is like so top notch and such a variety of different writing. And you shared with me before the show, like you haven't been writing as much recently,
right? Yeah.
But that new trail piece, you just sat down and boom. That's ready to go. So maybe the rest did you good.
Yeah.
You did also share that you have been doing some drawing and journaling. Can we talk about that? Because Wolf is not in the studio and. We got more time. It's not because of Wolf.
No.
I like that he's
Well, just before the pandemic, I've always wanted to do a little bit of drawing, but never have. And so I decided, I'm going to take a calendar and I'm just going to every day do a drawing.
Yeah.
And first of all, back up.
Yeah. So we don't even need Wolf. You could do the rewind.
So during growing up, not just I wrote in journals. I have boxes and boxes of journals of hikes I've gone, camping trips, hunting trips, whatever day.
Journaling kind
just
of material.
Journaling, just writing. Yeah. Boxes and boxes. I'm gonna have to burn them because the kids aren't gonna know what to do with them.
Well, what about you going through them and kind of, picking and
burn them. Just burn. Anyhow, the game got to be a point where I said, God, I'm tired of that. I want to do something else. So I started drawing pictures every day.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up with on these calendars is a picture a day, lots of times talking about what was going on with that day, and sometimes not, maybe just a drawing.
Yeah.
And actually, it's been good. This is March of last year. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, let's get a little closer. Yeah. I haven't even looked at this. I'll show you what the colored pencil looks like.
Colored pencil. Yeah. So there you go. I don't know. Yeah, there might be something inappropriate, but that's okay.
You get the idea. That's how you lay out the page. He's got writing on there as well.
Yeah, and writing and stuff. And it has been really, and it's been good for my memory because my memory is failing. And I could go back and I say, I remember that.
Yeah, there it is.
And sometimes it has to do with world events. That one, wondering about how the war was going to end.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Flag,
yeah.
Nice.
And of course, with COVID and stuff, there was plenty to draw pictures of.
And time. Yeah.
And keeping track of the epidemic. So that's what I've been doing lately, and I've kept up with that since I started in January of 2020.
Yeah,
right through the pandemic.
Before
the
pandemic, it was coming.
Yeah, and so that's what I've been doing, and
every day you haven't missed.
Every day I have not. I don't think I've missed a day. Sometimes I have to play catch up. Like today, I did a couple today, and this one had to do with snow.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that. Or
there's a lot that had to do with snow. So that's what I've been doing lately. So
those, as far as like storage, and those are going to be easy to go through.
And those actually, I mean, especially through the pandemic, it's such a history.
Totally.
I mean,
I like your style. It's very communicative,
Like you can see that, and you can get an idea of what's going on.
You messed around a little bit with. I like how you do some days have like a 3-panel.
Yeah, I finally get lazy.
No, you can go on a trip or something.
Right.
It looks like Kayaker Cove. We got a raven.
Yeah.
What's that flower again? Remind me.
That's a forget-me-not.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no, it's not. It's dogwood.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. There you have it.
Yeah.
So I guess to end this, is that I left. How are we on time? Are we okay?
We're good. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I think I could stop. I don't know about the YouTube. I'll text Wolf, but yeah. Let's get toward the being soon. Yep. Go ahead, Mark.
I retired in 2004 at the age of 45, I guess. And the reason wasn't because I was ready to get be done with education.
Yeah.
I had built this whole curriculum around research and behind the science that I was doing. It was stuff that I made up on my own. Mm-hmm. And that was when the Leave No Child legislation was implemented. And the principal at that time was very supportive of what was done. But he came up to me and said, Mark, you aren't going to be able to do that because it didn't fit the standards. You had to fit the standards.
Leave No Child behind. Can you just say a little about the standards for me? I think it'll.
Oh, okay. It was under the George W. Bush administration, and their attempts to better education. And on paper, it sounds great. I could go through all the arguments why it's
good
not.
Title, Leave No Child Behind. Like that.
Is that you want every kid to match some certain standards, okay? And it sounds great. But it means teaching to those standards. And if it's not on the standards, then and not tested, it's not important.
Yeah.
You notice that's back when we had advanced placement classes in the high school.
Yeah.
We don't now.
Right.
Yeah. So because those were gone because those were way above the standards.
Is that really what did away with it?
And oh, for sure. Right. And all the energy was putting into getting those kids, those high school kids, up to those very nominal, very ordinary standards. Well, unfortunately, that meant teaching to those standards by subject and by grade. And the principal said, you know what? You aren't going to be able to do this program that you've been doing. It's just not possible anymore. And I saw the writing on the wall.
The principal had been there and knew how amazing it was and how it worked. And
it was out of his hands. It was out of his hands.
So standardized testing came in too. And so he was concerned with that. Like how was that regulated?
High stakes testing.
Okay.
Standardized testing was always there, but high stakes. If the schools did not show proficiency, then teachers could be fired. Schools could be demoted. They could lose funding. That was high stakes testing. God. So you could get the idea of how that. I mean of course
that sounds good. That's like gambling. With
right. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but I tell you what, for all the well-meaning that was behind it, it did the opposite.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
And I was ready to move on, I guess, but wanted to do more stuff in education. But that was the end of the program. And all the wax museums and stuff that we did, which was part of
Tell me about that.
The wax museums. Oh, God, that was fun. It was the most inventive thing and great. It was during if the kids were studying like people or sometimes the 10 minutes of history, they would go ahead and make a wax museum with them being the wax museum piece.
Oh, nice.
They would develop the background, the furniture. It was all laid out across the school, music. And the best part about it, the sixth graders, they had to shut up and stand still for how long. And we would practice. Oh, it was marvelous because it was peace and quiet.
And then there was a presentation where they're all
they're frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
the entire
all
everyone's frozen down
in a
the wall.
classroom. Where are
No,
we?
no, all the way down the hall in
Okay.
the elementary school.
So they'd set it all up. They'd each have their own background.
They would have their
Is
own
it all
background.
part of the same scene? Or they
No,
all,
no,
or they all have
they
a
all
single,
have they're all
own,
developed their own
you each
scenes.
have your own, you know.
They would try, and it was amazing some of the artifacts and some of the things that they found that were not close to being true to the time, at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Where'd
very
you get
valuable
that? Yeah.
pieces. Brown and Hawkins allowed this one person that did a diorama on Brown and Hawkins
Oh, cool.
of their collars, their old time collars in this case. And they said, this is worth $10,000. Do not drop it.
Awesome.
Yeah. We had
what a good help.
Yeah, we had dog sleds there. We had it was marvelous.
So was the whole school like walking through? Like what was
and then
the show like?
the school class by class would walk through, and then we'd have evening presentations.
Nice.
And then it was highlighted for the Seward 100-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And people from all over the state came, including reporters.
Sure.
It was cool.
That's something to come for.
It was, and each one was frozen in some sort of action. They just couldn't stand there. They had to be active.
There was story to the pose, even,
Yeah.
or fitting into the diorama.
Right. And it was interesting how we practiced that.
Yeah.
I would take 3 or 4 students.
Yeah.
And I would take some moment from history and I would whisper it to the 3 or 4 students. Like, for instance, the Wright brothers' flight.
Yeah.
And I would say, you have 30 seconds to figure it out. And then I'd say, 1, 2, 3, freeze. And they would freeze.
Yeah.
In this, and the kids would be able to guess where that is slice of history just by their expressions.
Wow.
Looking up in the look of
Wow.
wonder and stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's acting, that's like in a
Oh,
party
totally.
game, and like, these like fun, again, it's so fun. And I could see them being good at that.
They
like,
were great.
And this, what you're kind of showing me is like this, think really hard, work really hard just for a little bit of time. Like it's almost like a sprint, like go, like this is the time to be on, and like, where did you come up with this wax museum idea?
I had heard about it in a whole different form.
Yeah.
A teacher up in Fairbanks did it with her quest class, but we're talking about half dozen kids.
Yeah.
I said, I can do that with a classroom. And and I was doing the research project program at that time.
Yes.
And so I said, I can take that.
Fits right in.
It fits right in.
Nice.
Yeah, and it did.
So you had several years with the wax museum, and
we probably did about 8 to 10 years of wax museum.
nice.
And they were just magnificent.
Ugh,
The kids that were involved, I'm just so proud of them.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love. I mean, just as an experience for an audience,
Mhm.
to go through that. I mean, the value for the presenters. I mean, that just sounds like. I think the community of Seward would love to be walking through a hall like that.
It was really well
let's get
received
that
by
back,
the community. It was pretty cool.
You can be an advisor on that.
Yeah.
like hey, here's how I did. Here's what
Yeah.
worked. Here, if you want to do like this, this is.
Thing is, for that to work, it can't be this isolated thing. In order to build up to that, they had to do all that research. I mean, that was part of
Right.
And you remember, each research project had a presentation. We wrote in and talked about that, which was usually an oral thing, or something like that. But this was the grand presentation for a given topic.
Gotcha.
But it really required 3/4 of a year to get to that point.
Yeah, that was like a big.
That was a big
celebration.
Yeah,
You guys are ready for this.
Yeah,
Here we go.
yeah.
Have fun, and
that. Actually, when I started doing that, it was very visible, and of course, all the kids coming up through the grades wanted to be part of it.
Yeah.
And so it brought in a lot of buy-in. When
Yeah.
the kids came in, and I said, "This is going to be the toughest year you've ever had of school."
Yeah.
But this is what we're doing, and
Yeah.
I explained. But remember, you got the wax museum.
Yeah.
And so
That was
there
a big.
yeah.
That was a carrot to kind of work for.
And I got mentioned Yetta Scarborough was a fellow teacher that also we worked together. I brought in the research, but then she tied into it and was both of our classrooms that were doing it.
Yeah.
Which was so nice. And when she joined us, we both did the wax museum together.
Yeah.
So then we had almost 50 plus students, 50 plus booths.
Oh my God.
To figure out all the way down the hall into the gym. It was musical.
So good.
It was cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
There's a visual.
Yeah.
So
This
much.
has been fun.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that sharing it with another teacher, the curriculum built. Like, so this curriculum is it's here. You
It's-
got the
it's
rubric.
there.
You know it. You could sit down with some sessions, and I just
If
really
a
love-
teacher was really
yeah, it's
interested,
that hard work.
but it does. You have to make it your own.
yeah,
It-
right, right.
It's not a canned program.
Right.
It's
Like
not.
writing though, we take your final draft, and
Mhm.
you kind of make it work for how you and
Right.
your students, and I mean, so much student involvement with them, kind of
Mhm. Yeah.
awesome.
Well, we filled up better than an hour.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm lost. I'm totally lost in it.
Yeah.
I always like to ask the guests as we get close to the end, which,
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to share, or you want to say to the community of Seward here on the radio right now, live, or,
Right.
right.
There's writing it's not just for language, but when you develop your writing, you're developing brain cells, connections, you're getting smarter.
Right.
Okay. And so every kid should write and write a lot. It wouldn't be bad for adults to do it too. There you go.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's the show.
Go
ahead. Thanks, Mark.
Even on Facebook.
Yeah.
No, maybe
Yeah.
not. All right. It's a
There
wrap.
you go.
Hey, buddy. So
Okay.
good.